Hey, this is Pittsburghpat with Ryan Doyle, the Vertigree Table. How are you, Ryan?
I'm awesome.
Great. So we're going to talk about D&D and our session last night and some things we're learning about the new Player's Handbook rules. But we were just talking about Star Trek before this started. I like, we should be rolling on this. This is good stuff. So we were mentioning something about, oh, Ryan was giving me the controls and he was saying, you're the captain now. And I said, yeah, I just watched that first Star Trek movie. It's on Prime for free or something. And there's that motif of Kirk getting the Enterprise, being the captain again, even though he's an admiral or he gets busted down. I don't know. He always ends up being the captain, even though it's
You-
unlikely.
Either you're promoted or demoted, but you're the captain still. Or
Got to
again.
put him in the chair, right? He's got to have the center seat. So Ryan was like, "Do you like the new ones?" And meaning the J.J. Abrams ones,
The
whatever.
new ones are 10 years old now.
Yeah,
They're
right.
not that new.
No, the newest thing from Star Trek, which I think is brilliant, is called Lower Decks, and it's a
Mm.
animated series that some people didn't take seriously because it makes a lot of Star Trek jokes. Like the more you know about Star Trek, the funnier the jokes are because there's all these throwbacks to things that happen, but it's also creating its own lore now too. So there's four seasons of that out. I think there might be a fifth one coming out. And I think I was just rewatching some of those. Those are funny as all get out, you know, I think, but you got to be a fan.
It's funny. I was never a huge, I enjoy Star Trek. I was never a huge Star Trek fan because it felt like they're always making more of it. And I mean, I've seen a lot of the show. I've seen like the original show, Next Generation. I saw all of the movies back in the late 80s, early 90s. I remember being like really the whales made a big impression on young Ryan. And I like the new ones too, but it's funny, Star Trek, the fandom is it's such a deep set of lore and there's so much material that like I've watched a ton of Star Trek and I hesitate to say I'm a fan because I don't know if I've seen half of it.
Well, there's a good tie-in to D&D. So this week, watch on Ryan's channel, and I'm going to try to learn how to stream this week to YouTube. And we're going to be talking on Friday at 3 p.m. about lore, about D&D lore, because that's going to be in the new DMG. And I just watched the video last night. And yeah, you want to talk about a wealth of lore. There's 50 years worth here. Similar to Star Trek, right, in length. I guess Star Trek's
Yeah.
probably like 55 or maybe 60. I don't know. We're going on. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's what I have to tell you. It was a little intimidating. When I thought about becoming an adventure league and a so-called official DM, is that I'm like, I don't know half of this stuff. I don't know a third of this stuff. I don't know a tenth of it. Now I realize I don't even know a hundredth of it. But that's okay. There's going to be a lore glossary in the DMG. And so when somebody says a Serac, you're going to know where he came from, why he's a demi-lich. What is a demi-lich? It's a disintegrating lich. And why the Tomb of Horrors and the Tomb of Annihilation came around. You can do that deep dive, which I love the Tomb of Annihilation book. I've run several scenarios in Chult, and I really like that atmosphere. But yeah, there's so much stuff, and now we might get some Greyhawk stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, it seems like we're getting less Greyhawk stuff than I would like. Not that I'm a big
Uh,
like Greyhawk grognard, but that's I was looking forward to I always want new stuff. Give me more stuff, give me new stuff, give me variety.
yeah,
And they're using Greyhawk as like the example setting in the DMG, but it seems like it's just going to be a scaffold to build on. It sounds like we're staying in the Forgotten Realms for 5.5, which
gotcha.
is fine. I mean, I enjoy the realms. It has its detractors because it's too much, but it's the
It's
kitchen sink
everything.
approach means you can find your place within it. I think
Sure. I
it's
mean, that's the thing with like Star Trek and if you're a space guy, you can do Spelljammers technically in the Forgotten Realms, right? So like you
hmm,
can tie all that stuff together. That's what I did. So like I guess I was saving this to talk about on Friday, but there's no reason I can't talk about it twice. But one of the reasons I got into the Spelljammer stuff was it's, you know, That came out, the newer book came out, the 5e book came out in 2022. And that was like fresh when I started DMing at this game store. And so I thought, well, this is pretty much brand new to a lot of people. There are people that remember the old, Spelljammer stuff, but this is going to be new to a lot of people. So it's new to me. So like I've got level ground. I'm on a level playing field here, so yeah.
And I get questions, not a lot, but it comes up in the comments of like I've made a lot of like beginner dungeon master videos, and every once in a while someone will come by and like, how do I quickly get answers to the lore, right? So I'm sure Watsy was hearing those questions too, so they're putting that in the DMG. But like my short answer is still two parts. One, the wiki is pretty good. There is a Forgotten Realms wiki, and
Yeah.
again, the Forgotten Realms is only is less than half. However you're going to measure it, it's less than half of everything that's out there. But that's what fifth edition is taking place in. So the wiki is pretty good, but two, who cares? If someone else knows more than you at the table, cool, defer to them. Otherwise, make it up, look it up between sessions. Every iteration of the game is different. So make it your own. Do what works with yours because there's a lot of contradictory stuff. It's like the same reason I kind of fell off of Marvel back in the day is they've reset the timeline again and again and
Right.
again. So
Right.
that almost like nothing matters. You can make stuff up. They've killed off gods and reincarnated them, and they've changed so much in the course of like 2 decades of time
Yeah.
that you can make it your own. Do whatever you
Well,
want.
you said the same thing about Star Trek. At one point, there's two Spocks on the screen at the same time.
Yes.
So it's like
And
a
they
hand
and
off.
they did it well.
Yeah.
They did it well, but it does you get into dangerous territory very quickly where it's like I will not tell you anything and change the fate. That con guy, you better watch out for that.
Yeah. Right. I thought you meant Con, but you meant Khan.
Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Or oh, his name just went right out of my head.
Ricardo Montalban.
Thank you. Thank you.
See.
You said it
Yeah.
properly too.
Oh, he had such a great accent. I mean, he was a tour de force on the screen. Yeah, it's still probably my favorite Star Trek movie, the second one, you know. Even though I was a big TNG fan, I was a big fan of Next Gen.
Hmm.
But the movies just didn't, I don't know. Some of them were good, some of them weren't. Yeah, so let's get to D&D. So speaking of beginner DMs, this is a great session for people that are beginner DMs to listen to, I think, because there were some things that you did in this session that were a lot of fun. So we were on a sinking, but well, we were on a boat that was listing. We had to retrieve some treasure from the hold. We did that. And as we did that, crash, boom, we hear like the cracking of the hull and tentacles appear. And so you had some very interesting and I think exciting and good beginner DM lessons in this session. So you did a lot of ability checks, right? So like,
Yes, there was a thing called a skill challenge, and there still kind of is if you want there to be. But I made it very clear early on that like this is not combat. We're going to do it in initiative order because what happens when matters, and we want to stay in this like bullet time level of resolution. However, fighting this thing to the death is not going to work out for you. So the object of this is to escape, and I am open to any creative uses of spells and abilities and anything you can try to do, make a case, and we'll roll dice about it if we have to.
so
And it was a
doing
lot of fun.
things, yeah, so doing things in initiative order is a great thing to do, even if you're not necessarily in combat. Now, combat was possible and actually likely at one point, but at the beginning, what like you said, like every character acts in order. It keeps things tidy for the game, for the game. It also creates these wonderful moments of, especially at the very beginning. So right off the bat, for instance, I have a rogue, I have a high initiative roll. I go first, and I'm like, well, I'm going to help my buddy who is dangling from a rope or is standing next to a rope who has descended down one deck from me, and I'm going to help him get back up the rope. Well, he decides on so I'm holding my action to aid him. And he decides he's going to run across the bottom of the, run out of my sight
Hmm.
and to go help two of the other party members, which was perfectly logical thing for him to do, but counterintuitive to what my plan was. So immediately the plan goes, sideways, and that makes for fun and opportunities for humor. I'm like, where are you going? I'm waiting for you, So, and now
Yeah, and
I've
it's like,
lost a turn to get out of off of the ship.
and it's suboptimal gameplay by some measures, but it's like way better story wise. Like this is what's
Right.
happening. Chaos is erupting. You're acting immediately in the moment. I did kind of lean on the gas a bit and like, you don't have time to make elaborate plans here. Like this is happening. You have six
Yeah.
seconds. What are you doing? There's some leeway there. I didn't have a 6 second timer for you to decide what you were doing, but I did keep the pressure up, and that led to a lot of mixed signals, figuring out what was going on, in the heat of the moment, some actions at cross purposes, and then there's a lot of variables that the situation itself escalates and escalates. So I should say we're running. It was the end of salvage operation out of the Ghosts of Saltmarsh.
Okay.
I ran it pretty straight. I threw a little spice in here and there,
Hmm.
and like adjusted things. But it's interesting. You guys did really well. One, you had set yourself up for success during the initial combat at the end of last session.
Right. So we
Um,
cleared the monsters that we saw and knew about before we didn't try to like sneak in and grab the case. We cleared the monsters and then got the case.
and got the drop on them and
Yeah.
got the case while so the druid and your like NPC ally, who you've been paying very well, had l located and isolated and picked up the case during the combat. So they spent 3 rounds doing that, which there was a little bit of like tension there. It was like, oh, are they like wasting turns? Like, shouldn't they be like doing damage instead?
Right.
But that put you 3 rounds ahead when the ship started sinking. So you guys got out before the bottom layer flooded fully.
Right.
It just so happened that those two characters had swim speeds, which became very relevant.
That was really amazing. Yeah.
So like a
So
lot of things went right. You rolled very well. I didn't. I'm swingy. I'm not hot or cold. I'm both alternatively. So like, you cleared out most of the monsters, which was also a big thing. If you were fighting your way out instead of just running, it would have felt very different. And the monsters that did come out, you guys put in a bind. There was a fog cloud. There was a lot of confusion. So I was actually letting the dice decide how smart they were because they were literally just born. They were demons, but they had just emerged like seconds ago. So it's like, okay, how they don't know where they are. They don't know the lay of the land. They don't know what the hell's happening. So I was letting the dice decide how effective they were, and the dice said not not very.
so speaking of the lay of the land, so the ship is like listing, right? So it's
Mm,
like, so every time we move, it's difficult terrain. So you use that technique so your speed is halved, and we made dex strength checks to lift the box because the box is heavy. We made dexterity checks, uh, every time every time it was the tentacle creature's round
mhm.
because the ship is shuddering, and so you had to make a dexterity saving throw. Um, when we got to the staircase, it's kind of like a rope railing staircase kind of situation. You could make an athletics to pull yourself up, or you can make an acrobatics check to kind of bound up the steps. So that was good for me. I have high athletics, and I had a nice roll on that. But yeah, so having those checks, those skill checks, I think that's where it informs your actions as a character, right? So you're going to try to play to your strengths, and
Mhm.
so it helps with the storytelling. Now the egg cases that we saw in the previous you know in the previous session. Now they've hatched. Now there's these infernal creatures roaming around on this ship, and so we have to deal with that as well. So that was a nice little flavor moment. Now it seems like the tentacles aren't specifically trying to attack us, like personally. So So that helped, us like kind of avoid them. Certainly, they were objects that could have been attacked if we were silly enough to do so. But yeah, the liter when you said lay of the land, that was what I was thinking. It was like it
Hmm.
really felt like we were on a listing ship, and there was an old game, really old game, probably like the 70s, about escaping the Titanic, and this reminded me of that because the water level would rise. And you had an idea for a visual effect on the game mat that you were thinking about employing.
I went back and forth. So I had a blue marker, right? That was the original plan. And then I actually raided my wife's like craft cabinet closet area. I was like, if I had a piece of blue cellophane, if I had clear blue that was like um so if I had thought of that a day earlier, maybe I would have gone to what Party City. I don't know where one acquires blue cellophane.
Dollar store,
Uh,
I don't know. Yeah.
but yeah, crafts. Um, but yeah, I could have got more creative with it. There were a couple moments where it's like, man, if this was like a three-dimensional model, that would be much cooler. But like a
Yeah,
four-story three-dimensional model gets complex.
I
But like
actually
the idea of like the Z-axis was in play. The water level was rising, the boat was shifting more and more, it was listing more and more to the point where it actually helped you figured out the tentacles were concerned only about the boat, and you getting hit by them was just an environmental effect of being too close to the boat or physically on the boat because
yeah,
you dove off
yeah, I was
pretty
like,
quickly.
as
Your
soon
character
as
was like, nope.
nope out. So like as soon as I saw like the deck, it was like, all right, let's find out where the launch from our boat is coming from to
Mm,
rescue us, and let's get as close to that as possible and dive in the water. And the rest of the party was laughing about that, and I thought that was what my character would do, right? Just you're so you were having it so that if you failed the dex save every round that once a round, you would take damage, bludgeoning damage from whatever debris hitting you, splinters, maybe piercing you, shrapnel because the timbers are being crushed. And I thought, well, let's get out of that.
mhm.
But other people thought it was like out of the frying pan into the fire because now I'm in the
Yes.
water with this giant creature that is obviously on the end of these tentacles. They weren't just tentacles reaching from another dimension. And I got to roll a perception check to check for that once I dove off the ship. So the other like player function of jumping off the ship was to find out what the heck this thing was, see what we were dealing with. But that all seemed like it was very much in character
Hmm.
for my character, whereas he's not really that strong, so he's not gonna be great at lugging the box, helping with that. So and he doesn't have a swim speed, so he's not gonna be like he's not an underwater creature, he's just a criminal rogue that grew up in a town. So like he's not Mr. like Aquaman here. He's not the sea elf that we've been paying, like you said, been paying really well.
Yeah, I think
As
rogues
coming
get
handy.
underrated a lot because a lot of people only measure by how much damage you're dealing. At early levels, rogues are dealing a lot of damage, and then like other classes catch up. But a rogue is built to survive. And that is thematic, and it's also gamist. You evade danger. You're not going to run into the burning building. You're going to get out of dodge better than anybody.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
and
he's
your
got those
character,
mechanics, right? He's got the disengage, and actually that came up at one
yeah.
point. At one point, he climbs back onto the ship,
Hmm.
and as soon as he does, this creature comes out of the fog cloud and bites him.
Hmm.
And then he nopes. I rolled an athletics check or acrobatics check to like kind of do a backward somersault. You said it was very Jack Sparrowish, like
It was
just fall
perfect.
backwards back into the drink and say, "Nah, I'm out." So that was what I got. The reward for coming back to help my buddies was to get bit in the face.
That was the dice, not me.
No,
The
right.
the other thing, your character has been wearing a captain's jacket that he took off of the captain of the ship that you guys are now in control of. He slayed a pirate captain, took his jacket, has been wearing it, and then decided that he did not want to be a captain anymore and go down with this ship and took it off so he
Yeah.
could swim away better.
Yeah. I mean, like if you're gonna like have this heavy wool jacket and you're gonna jump in the water, it's probably not the best idea in the world. So yep. That's over now. Now I got a cloak of protection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an upgrade.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
And there's good and bad to it, but the our paladins player was not there, so
Yeah,
we
it was a
didn't have to deal
shame.
with heavy armor
Hmm.
and swim speeds and stuff because that's a sticky situation sometimes.
Oh, definitely, definitely. One thing about the fog cloud, we found out the fog cloud is the new fog cloud spell is a 20-foot radius. So
Yeah,
40
it's
feet
big.
of fog cloud. And if you cast it in any higher spell slot, you can add another 20-foot radius to it. So, if you're a high level spellcaster, you can eventually make this thing like a fog bank almost, it's pretty intense. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, situational but great. I think every spell that you can conceivably upcast like should scale.
Yeah, why not? I mean, like, you're what was the word that we learned yesterday about the precipitation that fell in Pittsburgh? It's like
Oh, it wasn't gravel. Grapple?
Grapple,
Grapple?
Graupel or something like that, I think is
Yeah.
how Mike, I didn't look it up. But yeah, we had some weird 30 seconds of precipitation
Some very
yesterday.
particular form of freezing rain that's not quite freezing rain. It's
Yeah.
snow that got a layer of ice around it in the upper atmosphere. I don't know, very, very particular meteorological phenomenon. There's been a world's changing, folks. Buckle up.
I
Weird
missed
things are
it.
happening.
I know, yeah, that somebody said it had hailed and based on the sound that out the window, somebody might have thought that. I wasn't in the right microclimate to see
Hmm.
that in real life. But let's say you're a first level spellcaster and you're trying to cast hail, like a uh hailstorm or something. What is I know there's meteor storm, but like there's
Sleet storm is
leaf storm. That's it.
third level, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
So if you're doing that, maybe you can only summon up this grapple stuff. And then if you're like, you know, doing it at a higher spell slot, then maybe it's like, oh no, this is like Texas softball sized hail
Mm.
now, and it's doing damage, like serious damage to property and people, So
And there's
yeah,
systems that lean into that where there's fewer spells because your fire bolt becomes your flame strike fireball. Like it's one spell, but depending on the slot,
right.
it's nine spells essentially. And I just like that how like it's the same thing, the cantrip versus like how much mana, how much chutzpah, how much moxie you're putting into it, affects how much you get out of it.
Yeah, it makes sense. That the area effect is bigger or the damage is bigger. I mean, and then thematically, how to describe narratively, how to describe that, right?
Yeah.
So, that's the fun of it. So back to the narration, we get off the ship with some struggle, and we get to our launch, and then we get back, and the Snowfall at Dusk, who is our beautiful druid played by Mike, sees that this is some kind of either undead or diseased giant octopus.
Hmm.
And so it's something weird. And it's basically crushing the ship. So we get out of there. And it doesn't pay any attention to us. So we get like quite a bit of a reward. We get like 10,000 gold pieces because we're doing this mission for like an underworld, underdark kind of character, the tiefling, right? Who's like the criminal underworld boss, maybe of the town of Saltmarsh. And then we get another mission, which pays 1/5 of what.
Hmm.
So the legitimate, just like in real life, I guess, or possibly in moviedom or whatever, you do the honorable mission, it doesn't pay as well as the one that has more risk. But and for a nefarious character. But that's the seduction of it. And it was funny because the sorcerer Bertram immediately tries to uh, say, no, 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 we're worth more than that.
Hmm.
It's like you get that one freelance job that pays like you know 3 times what you're used to making at an hourly rate at a a regular job. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's a temporary job. But now you suddenly think that all of your time is worth,
And
that
yeah,
higher rate.
now that's baseline. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's not the way the world works usually. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So that was a fun adventure. And then we got some town time. We got to attune with some magical implements and things, and we got to buy some magical gear. So we're ready to go for the next one. Wands of feather falling, uh, +1 weapons. I got some +1 weapons. That was fun.
One of the hidden strengths of Saltmarsh is that there is a a magical item dealer.
Yeah.
Now it's custom order, which means it's not a store, so one, you can't rob it. Two, it's not immediate. It's like, all right, next time you come back here, depending how long it takes and how long it takes you to get back here, odds are you'll get it next level. So there's like planning ahead involved, but it's an outlet in so many games I've run out of a book. Here's 10,000 gold. Oh, cool. What do we do with this? Well, I don't know. There's 1d4 healing potions in town. They cost 50 apiece. Other than that, I'm not sure. Like Bastions is going to be a new outlet for that too.
Yeah,
But
Bastions, and then here's another thing I was watching on the official D&D channel in advance of our talk on Friday. They were talking about magic items and how to craft magic items. That's going to be a
mhm.
thing, crafting. And so you have some things in the book that you wrote, right? That
Hmm.
where you have tables where you give different kinds of color to various things. So what I was thinking of was, well, promote your book, talk about your
The
book.
the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation, available now at Drive-Thru RPG, has, among many other things, hundreds of magic items. 10 per archetype. There's 50 archetypes in there. And an archetype is essentially a background. So nothing too crazy. Some of the higher entries are getting into like rare, potentially very rare territory, but a lot of stuff that you would feel comfortable handing out at tier one. That for the A lot of them are all of them are thematic. A lot of them promote creativity. There's very few that is like this makes you hit harder. There's some of that, but most of it is like this does a cool thing that makes sense for the kind of person you are, where you came from. And I can think of a few creative ways to use that, and I'm sure you could think of a bunch more. So, yeah, that's one of my favorite and one of my players' favorite aspects of those tables.
Yeah, and that's why I'm thinking like these +1 weapons, like +1 short bow, short sword, and a dagger. Um, Adding an ability or a characteristic actually to each one of them. So there's like the ones that Chris Perkins and the other dude were talking about um, in the video I watched last night. Like is like the loud property, right? So like
Mm.
so if you have say you have a +1 Warhammer, and you connect and it makes a crashing, earth-shattering boom. That would be pretty cool. For a rogue, obviously, you don't want anything like that. But maybe you have something that kind of whispers, every time you hit with your short bow, if it connects, goes, got him, or drat if it misses. But just
Nice.
a little personality. And then it there was a story actually. They've actually found that's not a story, it's actually archaeological evidence. They found these sling stones. That the ancient Greeks used to fight the Persians and each other. And so they've dug up these little sling stones. Obviously, the slings, they're gone because that's material that would rot, but the stones are around. These lead pellets or rocks, but the lead pellets, some of them have been forged and they have writing on them.
Mm.
So the one that they have, I think it's in the British Museum, actually says, "Take that." So you could have like that kind of character, Ristic with your sword, or could have writing on it, or you could have magical runes, or something that doesn't, like you said, doesn't affect the mechanics of the gameplay, but it gives it some flavor, right?
I can't believe I haven't seen that. I've seen people write names on bullets in other TTRPGs where there are bullets going around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never seen someone like sign an arrow. Every once in a while, someone will try to will attach something to like will attach a scroll to an arrow to send a message or something.
Right.
But like, yeah, signing your or just like graffiti or talking shit.
Yeah. Yeah. But like
Um,
if you have a big bad one, a campaign where there's one big baddie that you keep pursuing, it keeps getting away. Like Venger, we've been
mhm.
talking about the cartoon, which apparently is streaming. Well, I know it's streaming on this looks like there's going to be a D&D channel. I don't know. And
There has been for a while, but they're quiet about it. It seems like a I don't
yeah,
know. A lot of what they do on a business scale confuses me.
I don't know, but I've been watching it lately, and so yeah, you could be like, well, this arrow has his name on it if I ever get the right shot, like so. Yeah, could be like that.
Or the flip side, you get hit with a crossbow bolt from
Oh
like
my
nowhere,
God,
and
a
you're like looking
blunt,
around, and it says got you on it. Like,
or you get hit by your own guy with a blunted crossbow bolt.
ah,
So I jump off my character jumps off the ship, is swimming away from the ship, and and meanwhile, Bertram's character is trying to signal the launch that's going to come and rescue us, and and he, and so he decides he wants to like make me glow somehow.
mm,
So he shoots a crossbow bolt at me that has light cast on it and hits me with it, only for like one damage. But I'm like, this is what's going on here. Like it was really fun. It was a fun, chaotic, very chaotic session.
yeah.
And you got that. That's what you wanted to, I assume, you wanted to create that atmosphere, and that's what you did. So good job.
That's good to hear because it didn't go quite according to plan, and very few things do as a dungeon master. But I anticipated it being harder and taking longer. It was an hour of game time that I thought would take longer than that because even in my me vocalizing, hey, this isn't combat, still in my mind doing the math, it's like this is 15, 16 rounds of combat. That is that's a
That's a lot of
3 hour
combat.
session probably.
Yeah. Hmm.
If I don't, I got to pick up the pace. I was trying to keep it tight so it wouldn't run long. But again, you guys did a lot of things last session that set you up for success. A lot of things went right, even amidst all the chaos. A lot of good moves were made, a lot of good choices were made. So it went pretty quickly. And I said to him, I was saying to Mike walking out at the end, like there's an impulse as a dungeon master. You're always balancing things. You want to get the most bang for your buck. You don't want to, oftentimes you're like taking your foot off of the gas. You're creating opportunities for your players not to die. Sometimes you're beefing up your big bad because the boss is gonna die round one. So you just whoop, you slide up that HP bar. I start there now and slide it back down. But the impulse to not let the players win easily when they've earned it is there, and I try not to succumb to that. Like you guys earned that victory. Some of it was luck, a lot of it was strategy. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't like we needed more of that to like get more juice out of the session.
Mm.
But that's an impulse I think a newer or even experienced dungeon master should like look out for. Sometimes it goes down smooth and easy because the players did the right things and they're going to enjoy that. I was afraid you guys would be like, "Oh man, that was a short one. That was less fun because there were fewer moments in it." But you kind of get to enjoy the glow of victory, and now you level up, and now we do a town day and kind of like sink our teeth into leveling up during a session, which is always fun. I usually leave that for downtime between, like in real world downtime between sessions. So you get to see what people are like. This is their options, and we're learning 2024 spells and abilities and feats, all sorts of cool stuff.
Exactly. And that's what you did. At one point, you said, "Hey, what do you guys get at level 5?" And
Yeah.
now we all know what each other got, for the most part. So, yeah, that makes it interesting because I want to learn all these classes. I'm only playing a rogue. I'm not multi-classing yet. And so I get to see what the druid gets, second wild shape or an improved wild shape. Misty Step because of the elven lineage, which I also have. So that was a neat coincidence. The monk gets some stuff. I forget what the sorcerer gets, but more spells. And then yeah, I mean, it's Cool stuff. So everybody's like picking their spells. And then I retooled my rogue to be an arcane trickster because I'm getting spell jealous. So so now I've got a couple things I can do, so that's fun. And yeah, level 5, like firebolt does some damage, like so, it's not a bad thing to have. Uh it's nice to have those kinds of cantrips. So yeah, cool stuff. I thought it was a great session. So yeah, thanks. Next week we're off to the Isle of the Abbey, which we saw
Mm.
burning and decided not to explore, but go back to town and collect our reward. And as a result, there were in-game ramifications to that.
Good and bad. Everything has consequences.
Yeah,
And again, it's the balancing act of like I try to make the world real and I try not to punish. Like sometimes there's an impulse to be like, well, you zigged when you should have zagged, so now it's worse. But like, no, it's worse because time has passed and things have happened. And it's
yeah,
not necessarily worse. It's just different.
yeah,
You know, I think part of my job is trying to make everything feel worse and punishing without actually doing that. That's the balance act. That's the sweet spot of like the dungeon master is the heel and is also like the hype man for the heel. Right.
exactly. Well, good dungeon mastering session, and hopefully our audience got something out of it. And we'll be back Friday. We'll be talking together, so tune in Friday, and we'll see that and check out Ryan's Verdigris table. He'll definitely be streaming it. I will try to do that. If I can't, I'll be playing the recap and then on the channel. And so see you guys see you Friday, or we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.